Facebook family. Welcome to the second edition of our amazing web series. We are shaping African conversations. We are talking mental health and COVID-19. So I want to start by asking you, how are you? Where are you streaming us from? And of course, we're going to be on for the next 1 hour from 5 p.m. all the way till 6 p.m. So feel free to let me know where it is you're streaming us from. And today we are talking about how to strengthen your relationships during this period. Because we know relationships are all about contact. So we are living in an age whereby you're being told to social distance. So obviously this has a lot of consequences when it comes to nurturing healthy relationships. And as always, I'm joined by an amazing panel who will be helping me dive into this. So let me introduce them. First up, the queen herself, Gina Dean.
Hi,
Hey,
everyone.
Gina, how are
Welcome.
you? How are you this week?
I'm good. Thank you, Tamima. I've had a good week, a productive week. I'm excited for the conversation this evening. I think it's going to be really interesting to get some insights and some help from Daktari as we listen to some of the conversations that we've got lined up.
Okay, and up next we have Dr. Frank Njenga. Dr. Frank, how are you?
Very well, very happy to be here this evening. If last week is anything to go by, we will have a good afternoon and good early evening.
Okay, so I'm catching something is different with your background today. We have the Chiromo Mental Health Hospital, Nairobi,
Yes.
SMARC on there.
Yes.
So probably just maybe let us in around your association with the same.
Oh, it's very interesting. Chiromo Mental Health Hospital is a new mental health hospital. Actually, it's not new at all. Chiromo Medical Center has been in operation for the last 25 years or so. If you look at the building behind us, it's a newly constructed building, which is the structure that we are moving into in the next few weeks. We place your mental health first. And that's the new, very big, very modern mental health hospital in the city.
Okay, and obviously we're going to be tapping into a lot of your wisdom as we talk about how to strengthen our relationships during this period. I also have with me Mr. and Mrs. Kirwa, Kate and Chris, the one, the only. I feel like you guys have missed events so much. I should have prepared something just to give you that pomp. Yeah, so how are you guys doing?
We are good.
We are at home, sanitizing the sanitizer before we sanitize our hands.
Okay, yeah.
That's the work currently.
I think pretty much.
In the absence of events, you're just at home.
I think pretty much everybody's feeling like you have over-sanitized your hands, because everywhere you go, you leave one place, you've sanitized. You go to the next place, you're sanitizing. So it's like in a day you can sanitize over 40 or 50 times, which is a good thing. We are all about prevention here. And of course, also joining us, we have Ruby Njonjo. How are you, Ruby?
Hi, Tamima. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And yourself? Where are you streaming in from? Uko wapi particularly?
From home, Nyumbani.
Nyumbani ni wapi?
It's a place called Muthika along Wayaki Way.
Along Wayaki Way. And then, of course, also joining us all the way from Nigeria, I have the lady herself, Tommy Sin. Tommy, thanks for joining in. Looking lovely.
Hello, Tamima. I should say, Haribosana. I've been trying to learn so much. I've been trying to learn so much. Kenya, to be able to say hello. I'm still learning.
Okay, you're great. So cool. So we can start.
Good afternoon. Habari Jioni.
Oh, nice.
Good evening, am I correct?
Yes, you did. That was great. You did well. You did well.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Super.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, so lovely to see you. And remember, if you're streaming, and obviously because we can't see you via video, but I can definitely see your comments. If you're streaming from anywhere, let me know where you're streaming from. And of course, today we are talking about relationships. And obviously, I have a couple, I have Ruby. So we're just going to be getting into the context of how has COVID-19 affected all our relationships. And we look at romantic relationships, we look at sibling relationships, we look at relationships with your parents, relationships with your friends, just to see how are you coping, and basically just to give you tools around how you can actually work and strengthen your relationships in this period. So I want to start with Dr. Frank. before we delve into the interviews, because generally it goes without saying, this period has definitely affected human-to-human interaction. So if you have a period where governments are now putting into place social distancing measures, without a doubt, there had to be some ramifications from a mental health point of view. So what so far is being discussed within the mental health circles? What is coming out that people are now either suffering from this as a result of the lack of socializing? Dr. Frank?
Oh, that's a very, very interesting, very long question. The way we look at this is that we look at it in at least two different ways. The first way we look at it is we look at what has happened to the population at large. We then look at what has happened at the individual. At the population level, a number of things have happened. The first one is that people have become confused. People have become confused because our government is telling us to do the opposite of what our doctors have been telling us. Our doctors tell us to be close to each other, to love each other, to hug each other, to go to church, to bury our dead properly, and in general to stay in close proximity. And then comes the government every day, and the government says, don't go to church, don't hug each other, don't go to church, don't bury people. So at the population level, that kind of double message that says essentially that you're safer when you do the opposite of what we know to be the right thing is very confusing. And what it has done in some instances is that it has led to what we call trust deficit. Trust deficit means that we no longer trust the word we hear from authorities. We don't trust government anymore because government seems very confused. When you have no water to wash your hands, to cook with, and the same government is telling you to waste all that water washing your hands so that you can live. Where the government is telling you, stay in the house, don't go to work. What are you going to eat in the evening? So the consequence of a trust deficit actually is social disobedience. And what we've been seeing, sadly, is an increasing number of people who are saying, "Kwacha kiumane, whatever happens, let it be. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to do what has to be done. My children come first," and so on. So that's at the population level. At the individual level, of course, a number of things have happened. We have seen increasing cases of depression, of anxiety, sleeplessness, excessive eating,
all the ladies are now feeling very strong.
Yeah,
Well, you've asked me to tell you what I have seen. I have seen all these things. And then, as we said last week, initially it was really nice and cuddly for people to be together at home in the morning, in the evenings. But a week or 10 days later, it's just too much. I mean, too much proximity. I mean, I married you for better, for worse, but not for lunch. It's really getting good. I mean, so real human beings are having real issues. And what I like about this our forum today is that we will have an opportunity to ventilate each and every one of the things that are clear. So two broad categories: population level, individual level.
Okay, so you say that essentially right now, and I want to start with probably couples, and we have a real life couple with us, Kate and Chris, and I'm sure Dr. Frank, you also have some experience in that department, as does Gina, anyone who's in a relationship. So you said, I married you for better or for worse, not for lunch. So right now we're in a situation where essentially people who are necessarily not going to the office or working from home or not working at all are being forced to stay indoors for endless hours without any escape. You cannot go to the mall. You cannot say, I'm going shopping with the girls. You cannot say, I'm going to go catch a movie. All the recreational facilities are closed. So essentially, you're stuck in your house with your spouse. It was for better or for worse. But unfortunately, I think, and especially this week in Kenya, we've seen it playing out with some very negative ramifications. Because what we're getting are that now incidences of domestic violence have actually gone upwards. And I think there was even the case from Umoja, whereby unfortunately the lady stabbed her partner, and it ended very fatally. So I want to talk about how can couples realize that it's very natural to feel stress. it's very natural to have some negative emotions, but at the same time, you also have to understand how to work through them. And I want to hear from you, Kate and Chris, because I love your story. You two work together. Let's start there. And
Yes.
Dr. Frank, I feel like you need to do a follow-up with them around how can couples work together successfully. They are like the perfect blueprint and billboard couple for that. So you work together, but now you're also quarantined together. You're stuck in the house together, for lack of a better word. So how is that going?
It's I think let me put it this way: when we were told to social distance, I think nobody had an idea that we as couples also need some form of social distancing to survive the marriage.
Okay.
Yeah. So even when we are working together, we will create time where she has her me time, I have my me time. So we will work in an event and probably she will leave and go home. And sometimes I'll wake up on a Saturday, we don't have an event, and I'll go meet my boys or go get shaved. She will go do her hair or something like that. Now, all those me time that gives you an opportunity to miss her have been frozen. So now you stay at each other like this the whole day. And I can tell you it's not easy. Small things that I could ignore have now been magnified. So it's easy for us to have a quarrel. So I let her also say her bit.
Kate, speak your truth.
Well, now you have to learn how to accommodate each other more, I would say, because initially you could argue or have a conflict, and you can easily maybe go out to the barber shop, maybe like you said, or go to the mall and come back.
Yeah.
When you've cooled off. But this time you can't go anywhere. If you go out, maybe it's just for a drive, and maybe by the time you're having the conflict, there's curfew, so you can't go out. So you have to sit there, and the things you are sweeping under the carpet, the things you are not sorting, you have now to sit down and have a conversation about them.
They're magnified. You have no option.
Yeah.
So there you are. It's staring you right in the face, so you can't ignore. So I discover the things that don't make her happy, like how I pick my clothes from the wardrobe actually annoys her. As in, me, I'll go and pick whatever I want and leave the rest the way it is. Then I'm told, no, you need to arrange these things.
Yeah.
And out of that, it can be such a big quarrel, you will be shocked
Yeah.
if you don't find a way of trying to, I will sit and watch TV because now there's nothing much. So maybe she's taking care of the house, cleaning. At some point, she holds her waist and looks at me and wonders, why are you not helping me? And I'm thinking, this is not what I normally do.
Yeah.
Then she's looking at me, goes, so what are you doing? Watching TV since morning? Hey, let me tell you, the first month was not easy. We are now coping slowly.
So you've learned, and I want to thank you guys just for opening up and sharing what your experience has been like, because in a lot of ways, I believe for anyone who's in a relationship, either you're married, either you're cohabiting, a lot of what you're saying is really ringing true, because essentially what people are now being forced into is almost like a pressure cooker situation, and
Yes.
there is no escape room. You're constantly in that pressure cooker. So if you don't understand how to regulate your emotions, then we start seeing very fatal results coming out of that. And maybe just to hear from the other panelists, Gina, what has your experience been like in this time?
So I have to say, for the first month, I was really enjoying, having my husband and my son around. My daughter, unfortunately, is not here, and I think that's really difficult for me, not having everybody at home. But I have to say now, enough. It's enough already now. I'm really quite keen just to get back to, I miss my friends. I miss this, the social interaction. And I think what I've done in the last month is to actually be more intentional about my relationships and making sure that even though we're socially distancing, I'm checking up on my friends a lot more than I probably would have if we weren't going through this pandemic. So I've just tried to make sure that I'm a lot more intentional about, reaching out, making sure everybody's okay and checking in on them, which I think has been a good thing, because even though we've talked about social distancing, never have we been able to be more connected than we have now. I mean, technology has enabled us, to FaceTime and to call, and I think that's been, the upside for me, is that I've been able to reach out to people I haven't talked to for a very long time, but that I care about. So I think for me, it's been a positive experience, but I'm really ready to get back, and I hope it's all over soon. I really do think there's nothing like being together in person.
Absolutely. As we all are, I think everybody's just about ready to get back to normal. And let's hear from Tommy, because earlier on I touched on the fact that here in Kenya specifically, we are starting to see some cases of domestic violence incidences going up. Unfortunately, there have been a few cases in the news about someone either, physically assaulting their spouse, and some of it has actually been fatal. What's the experience in Nigeria?
Okay, for me, let's say hello everybody. For me, it's been, the news has been, say, very mild. A couple of months ago, we had to do, say, at the beginning of the lockdown, we were very concerned about how people would react and what people will be doing to handle, some of these issues. And we discovered that majority of the people here are barely talking couple, okay? So they're corporate couple, everybody goes to work and then everybody comes back from work, so easily. But quite recently, it's been a totally different ballgame, because now everybody's at home at the same time. Husband and wife who possibly do not meet except in the bedroom at night say, hello, how's been your day at work? Now have to wake up together. So the news at first was like, oh my God, I'm so frustrated right now. He complains about everything and all. So we kept doing a lot of, intervention. Talk about how to maintain your relationship during this period. And I think generally, it's the general consensus is people are getting closer. Unfortunately, those who had issues, who didn't know they had issues in their marriages before, they are now beginning to discover they had issues. And so people who were not talking, and parents who didn't know their children are now forced to, unite with their children, bond with their children. So generally, I think it's been good for a lot of people. But I wouldn't be surprised that after the lockdown, a lot of people may be visiting courts to resolve their marriages, or maybe to see a counselor and see that the hidden problems that they had before are now very much in the open.
So again, back to the pressure cooker situation, whereby literally it's going to be a very determining time in a lot of couples' lives. So you're either going to make it, or unfortunately you're not. So I want to hear from Ruby. So Ruby, what has your experience been like? How have your relationships been affected?
Yes, so just as Kate and Chris was speaking about, so for me in the beginning it was very exciting. I had, to spend time with my husband and my 2 children. I could, we could play games, we could sing songs, and even though I'm working from home, there was so much warmth, and we always wanted to hug each other and just spend time together. Then of course with time you start to nitpick, and you begin to see bad habits. You begin to see, small things that irritate you, and especially like the kids, because my kids are pretty young. The eldest is 7. They start to become clingy, and every time they wake up, the first thing is mommy, mommy, and you're like, okay, guys, I'm still working, so give me some time. And then you begin to see things that you didn't know about them, maybe because you come home in the evening and you're rushing through that relationship, you want to get them to bed early, and so now it's a bonding session. It's good, especially for me as a parent, to be able to, spend more time with them. But I can tell you there are times when you easily snap. Like for my husband, he is a morning person, so he wakes up with a lot of excitement and he talks a lot. And I'm just like, yo, I'm not a morning person, just chill. When you're going to the office in the morning, it's cool because everybody's like, okay, bye, have a good day. But now we're there. There's no one to go to the office to or to work business, so it's us. So he wakes up and he's talking and I'm like, just wait a minute, just give me 5 minutes to load. And then we get along with it. So I can understand when people say it can get to a point where it becomes conflicting, because as Chris was saying, even for now, me, I'm the sort of untidy one. So I'm the one who will remove the clothes, and he's just looking at me like, hello, put those things back. Like he comes after me arranging, he's like holding, even in the kitchen, I'll remove all the spices and I want to cook, then I'll return them at some point. Then he's like, no, just pick it, use it, return it. So you begin to see there's a level of conflict, definitely, because we're together for a very long time.
Okay, so, and thank you for sharing as well. I want to throw this to Frank, because what's really come out is, especially on the couple level, conflict resolution. This is when people now realize, you know what, we are night and day. You are salt, I am pepper. But regardless, we love each other. So how do we make this thing work?
So Tamima, there are two answers to your question. There is a long answer and there is a short answer. Which one do you want?
So let's start with the short one first.
The short answer is that we are all normal. Chris, you're normal in the way that that you're reacting.
He's smiling. He's like,
normal. Yeah, I mean,
he's smiling.
It's terrible. The abnormal thing is a virus. It's not you.
Yeah.
You are just normal, regular guys living on this earth ordinarily very happily. You have found systems that regulate the relationship. So that's the good news. The other good news is that when the virus goes away, because it will go away, we will all go back to our normal selves. Chris, you will go back to work, you will do events. The young lady will be able to run away and do her hair and go to the mall and talk with the girls. Ruby, your husband will laugh. Will laugh at, in the morning. He look at the wall and laugh with it. So that's the short answer. We are all normal, living under an extremely abnormal set of circumstances. The long answer actually can be made short also, which is this. Listening to you, Ruby, discuss your husband and looking at Chris, it reminds me of a lesson we were taught in graduate school about how people marry one another. It's like a lock and key. So one of you is a lock, the other one is a key. So Ruby, your husband opens up your very happy places. Chris, you open the very happy places for your wife. And that's just the way it is. So what has happened is that you are perfect opposites. And you're perfect because you're opposite. And that's it. That's just the way life works. And that's why you're so happy. So, yeah, lock and key, and you're normal.
And thank you for that reminder, Dr. Frank, because I feel for a lot of couples, it's like now you're like, oh yeah, and now I remember why I like this person. And thank you for just putting it squarely like that. And remember, wherever you're streaming from, please let me know what your questions are. And of course, if you have an experience that you want to share with us, feel free to do so on the live stream. Just post your comment right there. And just as a reminder, because if you feel like this is a conversation that you'd love to take offline, please feel free to reach out. And as well, I want to encourage you to reach out to the Kenya Red Cross actually emergency helpline. It's 1199. Easy to remember. Ask yourself, how am I feeling today? Is it a 1 or is it a 9? And if you're a bit unsure, just dial 1199, call. There's always somebody on the other side of the line ready to listen to you. There's no problem that is too big. There's no feeling that is insignificant. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling depressed, please feel free to reach out to 1199. Talk to a trained, experienced, and professional counselor who will help you at least make sense of whatever it is you're going through. Now, I want to go back to Kate and Chris. And again, thank you for your honesty, guys. So probably walk us through it. How have you coped? What tools have you found? That because you've confessed, we're in a pressure cooker situation. You've told us that, yes, there are times we irritate each other, but looking at you too, I mean, your couple goals. So clearly, there's some tools that you have in your arsenal that people need to know about. So probably just walk us through how are you able to overcome those conflict situations, or when Kate feels like, hey, Chris, hii maneno ya kuamka kuona TV, unakunywa chai unaniachia kikombe hapo. Huh? So how do you guys navigate?
I think one is you have to talk to each other, speak out, say, be able to say, what is this thing that is annoying you? What is this thing that is not right according to you? And your partner has to have the ability to listen deeply. If only you can learn to listen to each other deeply and know what is very important for your partner. Like for me, he knows I like tidy places, tidy, clean house and everything. So he needs to be able to listen to me. I know that's important to me and work towards that. If he every day he wakes up and all he does is turn everything upside down, then it becomes more and more annoying. So if you know your partner likes something this way and it's very important to them, it's only important also for you to work. Let me see, at least you're putting some efforts towards that thing that I value so much.
So communication is definitely key here, and
Yes.
respect.
So there is a word that has been used here. Listen to me deeply. It's taken me 1.5 months to understand what that means.
Okay,
And I actually discovered it yesterday. You can't believe this is so timely.
oh, so we did this at the right time. Now you have your
This is the
epiphany.
right time because she used to get angry and telling me I don't listen to her deeply. Something deeply. I'm listening. No, you don't listen to me deeply. So now yesterday for the first time, I didn't move out of the house. So I watched the way she cleans the house. She started cleaning the place and everything from 2 to midnight. That's when it hit me. She actually does a lot of work in this house. Because most of the other time, I don't get to watch this. I'm always out. And since we run the event, even if she comes and join me at the preparation of an event or in the office, she will always leave because she knows when I arrive, then I arrive home as a husband and not as a owner of the company that we run for events. So maybe I don't see a lot of that. So yesterday I saw it. Until now, I told her, you know what, now I'm beginning to understand what you're telling me about listening to you deeply. That made her so happy. She was looking forward to this interview, by the way. So you see, it took 1.5 months of not knowing what she was saying. The other thing we have done is we realized that sharing our problems online and probably immediately we have a small conflict, we now reach out is wrong. So what we do is any conflict we have, we reach within ourselves and try and solve it ourselves and look at each other and say some 6, almost 7 years ago, we said when we got married, there are things we say to each other. So we try and say, I might be angry with you, but we are here together, we have to. So it's not easy, and we understand, it's wrong to say we understand the couples that take it out on themselves to the point of where they now fight and probably, hurt each other. It can head that direction very fast if you don't have proper breaks that you can hold and say, wait a minute, why are we fighting? Like I always say sometimes, when I'm very angry and I want to respond to someone who has told me something nasty online, what I'll do is that I'll write that message as nasty as it comes from my head. Then I don't post. I save it in draft. 3-4 hours later, when you go and look at what you had typed, trust me, you never post it.
That's true. Because you need time to actually give yourself time, take a step back. Because when you're reacting when you're angry, that's when unfortunately people make some very fatal mistakes, right? And I just want to hear from Dr. Frank, because I kind of feel like what they're saying is very valid. And there really is a tool there that people need to understand when we're in the middle of an argument as a couple. So for them, they tend to remember, you know what, I chose to spend forever with you, for better or for worse. But realistically, we do know that some people might be in situations whereby you're not necessarily equipped to handle it amongst the two of you. And really here is where now you're called on. If you have mentors in marriage, reach out. Talk to them, because there's nothing that you're going through in marriage that someone hasn't gone through under the sun. So probably on that, Dr. Frank, now maybe just from a mental strength sort of tool, what would be your best advice for any couple about navigating conflict and those negative feelings?
Now I will sound like a girl I know called Agony Aunt. Because really, there's no magic. There's nothing really new that I'm going to say this evening that most of the people watching have not heard about. For example, I'm going to say that it's true, it's legion, that best friends also fight. It's also true that twins also fight, and so on. So I could go down that line, and there's really no expectation that marriage will sail smoothly. But I think, as Chris and Kate have indicated, there are certain basic, let me use another word, fundamentals in relationships that really must be accepted. The first one, and perhaps most obvious, is that relationships are a two-way street. You can't have a relationship that goes in one direction. So the true and proper message is that, as Chris found out yesterday, Kate had a point. He just listened to the point. It has now sunk. The second thing, and this will come, I hope, as a bit of a surprise, and that Chris will confirm this, there's a sense in which relationships get better with time. So if you can overcome the challenges of today, tomorrow could well be better. If you can deal with the challenges of this week or this month or this year or even this decade, the following decade is likely to get better. The other thing that is true, and I'm so happy, Chris, you discovered this yesterday, is that there are some little, apparently small things that make the big differences. The one of them is one you discovered yesterday. Just listen to her. Listen to what your wife is saying.
And listen deeply. Keyword, Dr. Frank. Listen deeply. Not just listening.
Yeah, listen. Yeah. I mean, a lot of human beings, mostly men, you listen to what the woman, as they say, is saying, and before it has been said, you're already ready with an answer. So really, I can see Kate nodding. So it's a kind of listening to give an answer that is most pathological. And then there are a few men, not a few, there are some men who are able to do what many women do best, which is to talk about how they feel and what's going on in their lives. And for some reason that I'm yet to understand fully, women really like to hear what is eating their men. But let me just say one last fundamental thing. It is wrong for you as a man or a woman to abandon the core values that you hold, that you were brought up with, that matter most for you, to please or satisfy your partner. At the end of the day, when you go back to talk to yourself, when you're bare and when you confront yourself in nakedness, it is your core values that will hold you together. I could go on and discuss other things, but those are the fundamentals. Relationships are two ways, and for goodness sake, do not abandon your values and listen deeply with a view to trying to understand what your partner has to say. Oh yeah, Ruby is nodding like I'm a teacher.
Ruby.
I'm almost taking notes.
You're like,
I'm taking
preach.
them mentally in my head.
Ruby, are you sure we shouldn't have invited your husband to join us on this? Ruby, can you hear us? Yeah, Ruby, can you hear us now?
Sorry, Tamima, I missed that.
Yeah, we're saying we feel like your husband should have sat in for this session as well. So at least as you're taking notes, he's very aware it came from Dr. Frank.
Sorry, I'm having...
okay, so we'll let you sort that.
Let me just...
We'll let you sort that. We'll come back to you.
Okay, yes, now I can hear you.
Okay. So, but basically what we are saying
sorry
is
about
that,
that.
No worries. We are having a very light-hearted conversation. Remember, I want to hear where you are streaming from. Let me know if you have any questions. I think shortly my producer Yvonne will be bringing those questions to me so I can be able to just have a look and answer them back. But another relationship that I love came from both you and Ruby. The fact that you talked about parenting. You know, we're talking about couples. We love these kids. I'm a mother. I love my child. But like you guys, it's gotten to a point whereby I could literally just get home and sit in my car for like an hour. Because I feel like that's me time.
I did it yesterday.
You know, because I know when I get into that house, it's chaos. You know, mommy this, mommy that.
Absolutely.
So then, let me start with you, Tommy. What's been your experience, especially with the kids? Because kids might not understand that. You know, mommy's dealing with a lot. She came from work. She's having a tough day. They still want...
They don't get it.
Yes, they want your attention.
So, Rima, Sorry, thank you. So this is exactly what I did yesterday, exactly what you said. So I got to the house about say 6 in the evening, having left about almost 12 hours earlier. I just needed a me time. So I sat in the car, I parked in the compound, and I practically sat in the car for 1 whole hour.
I know the
I'm
feeling.
not talking to anybody. I just
Doing
sat
nothing.
in the car. I just needed a me time. I just needed the time to reflect and just come to myself because I knew the moment I get upstairs, it's going to be, mommy this, give me that, and all
Yeah.
of that. So sometimes it's a bit too much. It's a bit too much. I love my kids, okay, and I love my family. So I have a lot of, at the beginning of the lockdown, I brought all my family together. I'm the first child, so I brought everybody together to be in the house with me so that I wouldn't be worried, about what's happening in your house and all of that. But hey, I mean, I want to run away sometimes. I'm like, okay, can I just run away for like the next 5 hours and then come back? So sometimes work is an escape, but we always go back to them. So I create a balance. I do me. I try the selfish route. I'm like, okay, this is mommy time. This is me. And then I now attend to everybody. Okay, so I want your tab. I want this. And that's been my coping mechanism. So you don't get too overwhelmed in such a way that you lose yourself somewhere along the way. Because in the long run, you're practically for everybody. And then you find out you've not been paying so much attention to yourself. So
And self-care
and
is
for
self-care is very important in this time. I want to hear from you, Gina, because you also mentioned that your son is in the house and it's just getting to a point where you're like, you know what, we need to go our separate ways for a minute. So how has that been?
I love having him, but I have to say that I think every day I have to create a little bit of space and time for myself. And I think I kind of liken it to a bucket. If you've got to fill your own bucket before you can actually give anything to anybody else.
Yeah.
So I'm all for creating that time to fill my bucket before I can actually help anybody or give or fill somebody else's. So I think self-care, and I know Frank is a great person to remind us about self-care and about how important it is for us to spend some time alone doing whatever it is that we enjoy doing, whether it's listening to music or watching a movie or whatever it is, before we can then go out and face the world in these very uncertain times that we live in.
And Ruby, you also mentioned something around kids, and I really love how Gina put it, that everything essentially starts from self-care. You cannot pour from an empty cup, whether it's to your spouse, whether it's to your kids, whether it's to your family, whether it's to your friends. So how have you found, sort of like multitasking? Because you're dealing with, you're both there, Mr. Husband, you're dealing with the kids, you're dealing with work, you're dealing with family. So how are you able to make everything come together in one neat bow?
Okay, thanks, Tamima. So it's true, sometimes it can be very overwhelming. And usually what I have, in the beginning, I was doing everything haphazardly. I didn't have a plan and I was getting so overwhelmed and so frustrated. So what I decided to do was, first of all, I'm a writer. So every day I take 20 minutes of everybody else's time to just journal my thoughts. If something is, eating at me, I'll write it down, then I'll look at it the following day or after 2 days. The other thing I realized is there's some activities with the kids that they enjoy. So I try and distribute my time. I have a sort of schedule and I say, listen, for this 30 minutes, we're going to draw and paint and color, but you also need to remember mommy is working and she's working from home. So she has to lock the door and sit in meetings. So you can't come knocking or screaming or yelling. Usually, to be honest, Tamima, what I do after that is, like now I'm in a Zoom session. When I finish, I just take another 30 minutes for myself. And since they all think I'm in a meeting anyway, I'm like, oh, free time. And then, I can read my book. I can continue journaling my thoughts. And I can just, go on Instagram and, just look at what's happening. It just gives me time to just work with myself.
Yeah.
And also the same thing to what Tommy said. If I do happen to go out or when I come back, even at curfew, 7 p.m., I park the car, I'll sit there for 1 hour. I'm like, oh, so much calmness. I listen to music. And I agree, I love my children absolutely so much. But if you don't fill your cup, it's very easy for you to just spill over and get annoyed or get irritated by every small thing that either babies or the husband does.
Okay, so basically what I'm hearing, what we have done here today, the one thing we have legitimized is for any parent or spouse sitting in your car, that
Parking.
selfishness of just,
Parking.
it is now the new recreational activity.
In the parking.
It seems like everybody's doing it, which is okay, because it means that on some level you're very self-aware and you can actually recognize when you need time out. And that really is the point here, because we are saying that for a lot of people, life now can tend to seem like a pressure cooker. So if you can steal those moments where you can just be still, you know, find something that you love, whether it's just being mindlessly looking at Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, even watching this live stream in some corner of your house where kids are not necessarily disturbing you, that's okay, because your mental health matters. And I just want to take some feedback here. We have Linda Rotich. Linda says, her view is that relationships are being faced with uncertain things, which no one could ever think of. We're all in some sort of, I don't think I'm going to manage, when will this end, and so forth and so on. During our relationship, it's crucial to also realize and acknowledge that times will come and when we will need to be in search. So, and I love there's a point she's brought out here, the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty. And in the context of relationships, the economics do come into play. And I feel that now if we are going a bit wider, not just looking at the couple relationships, not just looking at the family unit, even the extended family unit, sometimes relationships could be impacted because the resources are not where they were. And I feel that on a personal level, I've gone through that, whereby my resources are not where they were. I've had to actually cut back, you know, sort of like downsize on a lot of things. So you're finding yourself increasingly in conversations, especially with extended family, who may not necessarily understand why all of a sudden certain benefits or certain, you know, needs that you are catering to now have to be put on pause. So what would be your advice? And if anyone has any experience with this, what have you experienced, and what would be advice for anyone who's dealing with this as well? So maybe let me start with you, Kate and Chris, because you are business persons, and I know for a fact that your business specifically has been heavily impacted with this. So obviously the finance and the economics of this, to some extent, does play into your relationships, not just with each other, even with your staff, yeah, even with your larger family. So how then do you just cope? Because there's a lot of uncertainty. How are you able to now, who'll take it? Kate, Chris?
Yeah.
Chris.
So obviously, when you mention the word social distancing to an event manager, you just shut him down. I mean, there's no event. I'm sure Gina there will agree with me. We look up to her because she used to do events when some of us were trying to do events. So we've learned a lot from her. So obviously from as early as January, all our events were cancelled, including, and when we say our events, it's not necessarily our events, because one event manager, 2 or 3 event managers getting an event means we will end up supplying something that we are specialized in. So you might find one event manager equals to 10 companies getting something to do and to earn from it. So when now you shut down everybody like that, obviously there's no revenue. So a large population of our workers are casuals whom we employ on project-to-project basis, including even the project leaders. So you will maybe sign a contract of a month, 2 weeks with someone, then it's over, then by the time it's ending, you sign up another one. So it's contracts like that, but since there are events happening constantly, they end up, you know, earning the entire year. But now all of a sudden, from December to now, there's no work from anyone. So those are the first casualties. Then now all of a sudden, you're sitting and thinking, this is what you have studied, this is what you put a lot of resources, knowing this is how you earn your bread. All of a sudden, that is not happening. So, of course, we've quarreled at some point, because now Kate was telling me, you know, we need to think of alternatives. So I'm trying to think, now what alternative is this? So you try and maybe we should, because food and sanitizers are the only things that seem to be happening. So should we go get a kafam somewhere, or do we buy sanitizers? So it's not easy. It's crazy. I just don't know. So that also will lead to a bit of conflict. So yeah. So that's it. It's not easy.
And probably this to you, Kate, I don't know, the fact that perhaps, and I feel like this is very relevant because we have relationships that are external. So perhaps your friends, your family, how have you been able to navigate, especially communicating to people that, hey, you know what, I'm going through something financially and I may not necessarily be able to support you how you feel I should support you. How have you navigated those conversations?
The beauty is this is happening everywhere. It's in the news. It's worldwide. It's not only in Kenya. So everyone has the knowledge to some extent about what's happening. So even before you get out to explain to them, things cannot be as usual. Things cannot be the way we were. They already know. They're actually thinking. If you extend a hand to help someone, they are very thankful because they are not expecting anything at this point. So everyone has that knowledge. Everyone knows things are not normal. And it's not easy per se, but everyone knows that things are not as they were. So it's easier that way.
Okay, so let me just take a question that I have here from somebody who's watching us on the live stream, and I feel like it's a very valid question, this. So you're saying, this is Rotich saying that, can the panel address how to strengthen relationships between spouses who have been separated by the lockdown and are in different locations? What should they do to just make sure that the relationship is still on course? I feel like that's a very good question, because that essentially means that people who are not really in a long distance relationship are now being forced to be in a long distance relationship. And the net effect of that obviously is that, at least for you, Kate and Chris, and even for you, Ruby, even for you, Tommy, Gina, you have that physical contact with your loved ones. In as much as there are times they will drive you up the wall, but they're there. You can touch them, you can talk to them. So what do you say to somebody who either by the time the government was locking down the coast, the government was locking down Nairobi, their significant other was actually stuck on the other side? And we know that now the lockdown has been extended for another month, and practically it may be extended for a longer period. So how then do these couples, and it's not just couples, you have parents, and I mean, Gina, you touched on it, that your daughter is elsewhere. So then how do these people still, maintain strong relationships and ties with their loved ones? Frank, you'll take this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those questions that either very clever people or fools answer because of the very nature of the condition of the question. And there are many, many possibilities. But I think at the end of the day, we go back to where we started. We are all normal people, husbands, wives, parents, and so on. And here is a temporary intruder that would, by God's grace, go away from us. And I think that's an important message for people who are separated by this invisible enemy, need to transmit to each other. We are normal, we love and care for each other, and this invisible enemy has come to destroy us, but we shall conquer it. Secondly, and this is important, words are not enough. I think it is important that there has to be some action. And the kind of action I have in mind are the normal things that we do in relationships. We spend time with each other. We keep contacting each other. We keep assuring one another. We express respect and affection for each other. We surprise one another once in a while. And I think although the situation is abnormal, the nature, fundamental nature of relationships is the same. So we must continue to do those things that we normally do, having accepted the abnormality of the, and again, I can see Ruby's nodding again like this. But I think that's, I think that's it. It's normal relationships in abnormal times.
Yeah. And just anyone who's streaming, remember earlier on I mentioned that in case you feel like you're going through something, you can actually reach out to the Kenya Red Cross. They have a team of experienced counselors. So if you just dial the number 1199, and how I like to remember this number is ask yourself, how am I feeling today? Is it a 1 or is it a 9? So if you feel like you need a little help, someone to talk to, call 1199. There'll be a counselor on the other end just to listen to you and just to give you advice, because sometimes a problem shared is a problem solved. And even on that note, E+, which is you know, one of the companies that we have here as well. So ePlus is running this amazing campaign. It's called eDoc. So eDoc is a telemedicine campaign that basically means if you are at home as a parent, even yourself or one of your loved ones is feeling unwell, you don't necessarily have to make the trip to the hospital. You could actually go onto their website, check out the ePlus website, and once you're on there, you could actually schedule a very professional doctor's appointment with a trained and professional doctor. So take a look at this for more details.
Introduces eDoc, a new telemedicine service. eDoc offers a whole new approach on accessing medical consultation and care regardless of your location. With just one click, you can access an online virtual medical consultation with professional doctors. Visit www.eplus.co.ke to enjoy free consultation up until the 16th of May. eDoc is fast, reliable, and secure. Quality healthcare is just a few clicks away on eDoc.
So there you go. Quality healthcare is just a few clicks away. And this is to Mark, you guys and your Facebook names. Oh my God. Mark Kefle Otieno, I hope I said that right. So you're saying this quarantine is making people sick because some women don't feel comfortable when they are at home. So kama mtu anasikia ni mgonjwa, nimekwambia nenda pale kwenye eDoc. Yeah, it's free up till this coming weekend. So you can actually get a free consultation from a trained and professional doctor. So spread the word to your friends and families. And again, just to remind you, because we are actually almost winding up this session, that if you feel you have any questions, please feel free to take the conversations online, you know, comment on this particular chat. You know, you can also DM us. You can get at me via my personal handle at Ms. Temima. And if you want to share this conversation with your friends, you can actually invite them to check out the Switch TV Facebook page where all the videos will be lined up. So right now, I just want to say a very quick thank you to everyone because our time is up. It's 6 o'clock, so we are meant to be winding up. So I just want everyone to give our audience some piece of advice. And it could be on any aspect of relationships, whether it's parenting, whether it's romantic, whether it's professional. Just give everyone one solid nugget of advice as we wind up. So let me start with you, Gina.
I would just say that I think it's important for us to keep reaching out to people and making sure that they know that we're at the end of a phone, because I think it is quite difficult when everybody's all confined. And they might, be missing out on social interaction. So I think it's, important that as we go along, as we go through the social distancing, that we do remain connected, even though we're physically distant. I think that, we can remain connected in some way, and I think that's really important.
Okay, thank you, Gina. Let's go to Ruby. Let's hear from you. What's your golden piece of advice around relationships in this time?
Okay, I'd like to speak about maybe relationships, especially for children and maybe their grandparents or their cousins. What you can do is you can organize to have even Zoom calls where they can just see their cousins, they can have conversations, just so they interact and they feel like, they're not so far away. Even if they're not able to see them physically, they're just able to bond with them. One final thing I'd say for friendships, it's tried and tested. We did it last week. You can have what you call a Zoom party. We actually had one where we're tackling a book that all of us have read. So it was a Zoom book party. It was so good. We're able to just talk about the book, to laugh. For those who take a glass of wine, they took a glass of wine. And that just helps you to bond with your friends, to reach out, to make sure everybody's fine. Because there could be some people who are living alone and they don't have anybody. And maybe every day they wake up, they're just feeling a little bit more discouraged. So reach out to your friends as well. Figure out creative ways that you can just bond and have some time to share together, even though you can't see each other physically.
Okay, I really like the idea about the Zoom party, because so far we've said the car is our new joint. You spend a few minutes in the car. Now we are talking about Zoom parties with books and wine and popcorn.
Exactly.
I'm liking this conversation. We can plan.
Frank is a big person for Zoom book clubs, right, Frank?
Yeah.
Ruby, you really made my day. I mean, really, Ruby. I don't know, you've never met you, but you're brilliant.
Thank you.
Zoom-based book clubs are mambo yote.
Yes,
and I really would encourage that. By the grace of God, we do them regularly, and they're great fun. Perhaps great fun. Keep it up. Maybe we invite you one day.
Thank you. Please do. I would appreciate that.
Okay, so let's hear from you, Tommy. What's your golden piece of advice around strengthening relationships in this period?
Right, so mine will be focused on strengthening your relationship with yourself because quite a number of people are losing their minds at a time like this because the worries of what's going to happen after COVID, the worries of I can't take care of my family, especially for the men who are providers and whose incomes have been shut down for the number of months that they've been at home. So I'd say that you begin to do a little bit of me time with the ladies that are doing the car thing. Yours may be to take a walk around the neighborhood, around the compound, and just spend some time with yourself, re-examine yourself, realign your thoughts, just try to find that solid base for yourself, a background, something that can hold you tight and let you know that things are still going to improve. As Dr. Frank did say, it's a continuous thing, and this is a visitor. COVID-19 is a visitor that we're going to put out very soon. So attack it from that perspective, and you definitely have time. So I would say asante sana. Thank you.
Okay, so I feel like Tommy has definitely challenged us. Next week, by the way, yeah, we are researching about what you guys speak there in Nigeria. Gina Frank, next week we're gonna be saying hello.
I'll do my research.
In her local language.
I'll speak in Yoruba next week.
She's really challenged us.
Between now and next week, definitely.
Okay, so Chris, Tommy raised a very valid point. So Sissy, us women, we know we sit in cars, we hide in rooms, yeah, we hide in rooms. We are doing book parties with wine. So what are the guys doing? Huh? What just happened?